Hey everybody, I'm Tim from Trout and Feather, and I know you're just like me when it comes to European nymphing. Call it contact nymphing, call it tight line, I don't care what you call it, but gosh, I've gone down that rabbit hole, and what I'm gonna share with you today is some of the goodies that I keep in my Euro nymphing vest. Stay tuned. All right, this is gonna be kind of a grab bag style of video. I have a bunch of things I just pulled out of my vest. I tried not to get the normal items that everyone may have in their vest, though I've started to realize you may not have all the same things as me, hence why we have this video. But let me first just talk about the notion of a vest. Do you wear a vest? For me, I really prefer a sling most of the time. There are actually even other days that I'll have a waist pack on because I don't want to carry a lot of stuff on the water. And then I even use a backpack. You can see my Stio backpack here because it's nice to just cram it all in there. It's on my back, it's kind of out of my way. Then I can use my chest pockets to put the other things that I like to use. What are those other things? Well, listen, we know we're gonna have flies. We don't have to share fly boxes and all that stuff, but let's share some of the other goodies that I have in my pack. With European nymphing, we're gonna have to talk about tippet and leaders. There is no doubt about it. So off of my fly line, because I prefer a fly line, I go with the Cortland braid core. And I have this little micro loop that I've created at the front of it using that braid from inside the line. Check the description. I have a link to a video by Howard Croston that shows how to do that. Now, from that point, what makes it such a nice system is that I can easily attach one of two leaders to that. The first leader that I use is kind of my all-purpose European nymphing leader. I can throw dry flies with it, I can throw streamers, I can do dry dropper, I can float the cider. I mean, I can do a bunch of stuff with that leader. I call that one my Pat Weiss leader. Pat Weiss is a member of Fly Fishing Team USA. He shared his leader formula with me. If you email it to me, I might share it with you too. But this is kind of one of my go-to leaders. Then, over the last couple seasons, I jumped down that micro-thin leader rabbit hole. So what's the material I'm using for that? Well, I started off using some of my cider material that I got from Cortland. Then I realized that this is called Fluo Sempe Plus. This is the stuff I love to use now. I'll simply just tie this with something like an improved clinch knot right to my line and run this down, I don't know, 15 feet or so to a tippet ring. So I always keep spare leader material in my vest. I'll also have tippet rings in my vest, just a few of them just in there just in case I lose a few while I'm on the water. I rarely do. And then I'll have some tippet attached to it. Now I keep tippet with me. My most common sizes, I like this Honix, they're fluorocarbon, around 5.5X. I love 6X and I love 7X. Though you won't always see me keeping this inside of my sling. There are times I have a little tippet ring or a little tippet holster. I put that on the outside. But kind of the easiest system for me, I like to keep it in my pocket. So if you ever look at any images of me and you see something round in my pocket, that's my tippet. Because it's there, it's ready to go, and I really burn through a ton of tippet when I'm on the water. Related to leaders, I mentioned I love to use that micro-thin leader system. Whenever I attach tippet, I tend to go like a long piece of tippet. And sometimes whenever you're holding your tippet out of the water at an angle, it's tough to know exactly where to be holding it. So one of the shortcuts that I've learned about over the last couple seasons is this neon wax. I'll put a link down below. It's great. It's kind of like a lipstick. You slide it on your leader or you put it right directly on your tippet and it kind of will then gauge how far out of the water I should hold. Then if I realize I'm at a deeper spot, I can just smudge it off and put it somewhere else. This neon wax, really cool. This is something else I love to just keep in my pocket for easy access. Now I'm holding some paste or some wax in my hand. What's this for? Well, as I mentioned earlier in this, there are times when I like to do this technique called float the cider. So basically, you're gonna have your line, your leader, and sometimes even a portion of your tippet, very rarely, directly on the surface of the water, kind of acting like a strike indicator. But how do you get it to float? It's simple. You grab some type of a wax or some type of a floatant that will adhere to your line. There's two that I love to use. One is called Paillette Paste by Loon, and another one's from Stonfo. They both make really nice waxes, and a buddy of mine has sent me some from over in Europe. So I carry a bunch of different waxes, but make sure if you're carrying one, it's a container that will keep sealed, because when this warms up when it's in your vehicle, you don't want it kind of gooing up the rest of the stuff in your bag. Now I know you love to fly fish in the fall, but don't forget, like this video so I can make more videos like this. Now, let's get back to some more tips. All right, so we could be using our leader for a strike indicator, or we can actually use a strike indicator. Or don't call this a suspension device, bobber, I don't care what you call it, but it's something to help me recognize that I have a strike. Now you might ask, why am I using indicators if I'm European nymphing? Well, we have kind of two options as an indicator. One is a dry fly, fish is a dry dropper. So I'll fish a dry fly off my tag of my tippet, and then I'll have a heavier point fly. Now, whenever I have a dry fly floating, typically I have to balance it out with a nymph that I know that dry fly will kind of suspend. Even though in my mind, once that nymph's in the water, I'm only keeping it on the drift for around 4 seconds. So I'm really not wanting that dry fly to truly suspend that nymph. That nymph should be kind of running along naturally. But there are times when I want to make a longer cast, or maybe it's a time of the year where I know fish are not looking up, but I want to keep my nymphs in that drift. Then I resort to strike indicators. I have a few that I love to use. There's no doubt about it. I mean, these are kind of my three. If I want a really kind of stealthy presentation, I'll go with something like these Loon, they're called tip toppers. I also love the Ghost Tech strike indicators. I've been using them for years. They're made in Pennsylvania. I'm from Pennsylvania. Win-win. So that stealthy approach, it's great. I mean, if you're using something like a New Zealand wool or yarn indicator system, continue using that as well. If I need to suspend heavier flies, then I'm gonna go with probably something like a thingamabobber. I like the smallest size I can get, the color white. It's nice as they're biodegradable too. And I'm also using a new indicator called an Oro style, where it actually unscrews and your line goes through the center. It's a really cool design, but then at the end of the day, I keep going back to that thingamabobber. Use the indicator you want to use. Now, I'm not in fly fishing competitions. I know you're not allowed to use these in those competitions, but hey, more from me.
More to you, yeah.
I mentioned dry dropper. Say I do have a dry fly on. Maybe it's one with CDC. It's gonna get wet, I'm gonna get some fish slime after I catch some fish on it. How do I kind of help that out? A couple different things. Number one, I keep a rubber band in my vest so I can actually attach the hook to that rubber band, pull the rubber band, and it will fling the hook around. It will help to dry my CDC. Something else that I love to use is a bandana. I always keep a bandana for who knows what, but definitely for drying off dry flies. Once I have all that water patted away, I'll put something like this frog's fanny, which it's not really frog's fanny. By the way, I refill these containers myself. I say frog's fanny. I'm giving them some free PR, but actually I've only bought a couple containers of it. Check this link up here. That's the stuff that I actually put inside of these containers. You should be using it too. If you're into social media, be sure to use that hashtag Trout and Feather so I can see what you're posting about and I can learn basically where you're fishing, what you're fishing, the flies you're tying, all that fun stuff. Come on, where do you think I'm gonna get my future video ideas from? All of you with that hashtag Trout and Feather. But be sure to add Trout and Feather on whatever social media platform you use. I'd love to connect with all of you there. All right, we're talking about European nymphing. Get that nymphing part. So even though we tend to use jig hooks, which ride hook point up, there are times where our hooks are going to be dragging across the bottom. They're going to get into debris like wood. They're going to bang against stones. They are going to kind of lose some of their sharpness. What can we do? We can make them sharper ourselves. I love to use these nail files. They're actually like a diamond nail file. They're not expensive. Look down below. I have a description to some you can buy on Amazon for around $5, but it's a really simple diamond impregnated nail file that you can just slide along the hook point. I use this and I slide it towards the point. I sharpen both sides, the top and the inside with one of these. So if you have a hook, you try to drag it along your fingernail and it doesn't grab one of these, you can sharpen your hook instantly on the water. Water, speaking of the water, come on, you gotta have a thermometer. Now I'm making this recording right before the heat of the summer hits. I wanna know the temperature of the water where I'm fishing. Because if it's that right temperature, I know there's going to be fish in that water. So I'm gonna use this to identify the temperatures. This is a laser one where I click this button and it will give me the surface temperature. It will come back to me in like now. Versus my old thermometer that I'd throw in the water, I'd have to wait, make sure I don't lose it, lean down in, pick it up. It worked really well. This one works a little bit better. If you don't have one of these, check my link down below. These are a great thing to have. Whenever I'm out on the water, especially whenever I'm using lots of nymphs, I seem to be going through flies constantly. Now, I'm one of those persons that I believe I could probably just use 1 or 2 flies an entire season and do fine, yet I'm a fly tyer. I love to use different flies, also adjusting it based on the sink rate. So what's that mean? I'm gonna be taking off a lot of flies. I don't wanna put them right back into my fly box wet. The hooks could rust, all kinds of stuff can go bad. So instead I have a little container here. This is one from Honeck, but basically something where I can put the fly and it will dry off. What's nice about this one, I can load it up with my flies, leave it in my truck whenever I'm done fishing, they will instantly dry off. Don't put squirmy wormies in here, however, they will kind of deteriorate. But all my other flies, they work really well whenever I have them in some type of a pouch like this, drying off. If you look around, you can see some of the other common things that I have attached to or in my vest, including my net, I always keep a water bottle. And then inside my pouch, I mean, these are two things I'm always going to have. A Kind bar, just to get some quick energy when I'm on the water. And also chapstick. This is Carmex, just something for my lips. I mean, I feel like they're always drying out whenever I'm fishing. So these are two things you'll always find in my vest. And finally, probably the most important thing, you have to have something to measure your fish. I mean, come on, this is one that I got from Fish Partner. This is typically the average size trout I catch. I'm sure, you probably catch fish much bigger than me, but come on, you want something in there so we can't tell any fish tales, right? All right, that wraps up this one. You just looked inside my European nymphing chest pack. Now the important question, what did I miss? Because I know you're gonna say, what about this, or what about this, or what about this? Tell me the stuff I should have in my vest that you have in yours. I can't wait to read about them down below. And also, don't forget to like this video. If you like this one and you wanna see more like it, tell me you like it by clicking that button, sharing it with your friends, and then by all means, you can check out more on my website, which is troutandfeather.com. Don't stop the fun yet. I talked about a ton of links and videos during the recording of this one. They're all right here in this playlist. All you have to do, click this playlist, let all that learning continue, enjoy all that information. It's for all of you. You can thank me later.